and you're still running it. And I'm like, I ran it at like, I don't know, 5, 6 different tracks, and it just looks really rough. But it's like, and they're like, why are you running that? You got, plethora of bodies on your shelf you can run. And it's like, I said, no, this is the best marketing tool I have. I bring it over to somebody, it looks like heck, but none of the fenders are popped.
Welcome to RC Underground Radio.
We're racing toy cars here.
If you've been looking for a podcast that talks about one RC tracks, suppliers, and events, then you're in the right place.
I haven't changed my underwear since the Kenman. I'm not kidding.
I'm not kidding. It's the same. I didn't want to go there.
It's this.
And we're glad you're here. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Retzloff and David Brinkman.
I am a BB in a boxcar.
We're back for another edition of RC Underground Radio. Welcome back, everybody.
It's us. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in.
So you had a wild weekend.
I did. A cold, wild weekend. 2-day show up at Attitude. Supposed to wrap up this season, but we have a rain date, which is taking place this coming weekend, but that sounds like that's going to get rained out. But, man, what a show Aaron Streblow puts on there up at Attitude in Waupun. Just fantastic. I think one of the highlights of the weekend, at least for me, were actually two of them. We had the 200-lap enduro in basically a box stock SR10. So it was really, really cool. Like, you basically bought your car, threw it on the track, and went. How
many cars are in something like that?
So everybody made the show. So Whoa. I think we started 18 cars. And, on that track, it's a lot. And as terrible of a driver as I am, you add a few more of those and it just becomes an absolute dumpster fire. But it was a lot of laughs. Shout out to Phil Jones and Adam Rudesky, who actually sponsored that race and put that on. Phil was gracious enough to actually donate a car. We raffled one off, and some proceeds of that raffle went to a family who needed some help with some medical bills. So once again, awesome job by Attitude and Phil for putting that on. I will tell you, my body, there's not much left of her, as you can see here. We got holes in this thing. I mean, my awesome wrap is flopping in the breeze, so that body, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to, it's kind of cool though, looking though, like it's been through all heck. So I may actually.
So just to clarify for people that are listening on audio only on Spotify, he's not talking about his body. He's talking about the RC car body.
Yeah.
I mean, his body's pretty well shot too, but.
Come on.
I don't get many slam dunks. I had to take it.
Yeah, but I'm actually running that SR10 chassis at Chili Bowl this year in the street stock class. So huge shout out to our friends at Wabam with the fall off spray. Great degreaser, helped get my chassis nice and clean. But it was just a great event. Super cold, made the best out of it, and the Streblows and everybody at Attitude actually pitched in. It was racer appreciation, so all the food was free and just an awesome event. I actually stayed the night Saturday night, which was a blast. So we just had a good time and got to hang out with all my people. So
why don't you introduce who we got tonight?
Shark RC Bodies. If you're anybody in the oval world, even the 1RC world, if you're into drag bodies, right? If you're into drag racing, Shark RC Bodies, Mr. Paul Peterson.
Paul, we want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for coming to RC Underground Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Paul, I got some questions. I don't know
if this is a setup here.
No. We are, I talked about it a little bit in the intro. Paul is a fellow racer, but we're here to really talk about Shark RC Bodies, and we're gonna discuss some of Paul's accomplishments on the racetrack too, because he is, really a seasoned racer. But let's talk about Shark RC and you've been on a podcast before, actually a YouTube video with JB Trickle, which was very enlightening to kind of understand more about the business. But there's been so much that has happened since then, and so many other bodies that you've created, whether it be for drag cars, dirt oval, all of that. But I want to peel it back for a moment because I'd like to understand more of like how you got into this, not only how you got into the hobby, but going out on a limb and purchasing this company. So can you talk just a little bit about that? Give us some back history.
Back history. Let's see. Let's see. I have a friend, Randy Yerke. I race with him. We used to race slot cars, 124 scale model slot cars, at a place called Hanks on Beloit Road in West Allis, Wisconsin. So that's where this all went back. Grew up. My mom got me in racing years and years ago. Me and my brother. So it's just kind of tracked, So. With slot cars, it was very hands-on. You had to like create your bodies out of models and stuff. So I did that for a long time, and then I got out of it. We raced at Lucky Bob's too for a while before I officially got out of it. Then one day I was reading some emails or whatever, and all of a sudden Randy sends me an email, sends me a picture of an SC late model body, and Randy's a sign guy, so he's done, redwood signs, so he made it look really good, and he sent this to me, and I was like, dude, I was like, where? so I didn't even have a car, an RC car. I never even raced RC cars, just slot cars. So I told Randy, I said, get me one. So I had a body on order before I even had an RC car, because it just looked so cool, because I'm a huge late model guy, so I love late models, so that's how it all started. And I started racing at, I think, 42 years old, whatever, as a rookie. That was, really real late start, but slot car racer. And I have Ryan's probably seen this before. I'm a very competitive natured type of person. So I love competition, but I get really, it's just toy car racing, but yeah. I'd love the competition, for all of us that have, not as big of pocketbooks. So I said all forms of racing are toys for people. It's just how big is your pocketbook, right? So mine is just a small wallet. So but the big guys, Lucas Oil stuff, they just have it's the same thing, So in a sense, so that's how I got into it. So I've been racing since 12, 14 years or so now. So and that all leads into where we found Attitude is I just went online when Randy showed me that car, and I started looking for places, and I forget what it was. Aaron would know for sure at the track. But I searched, and also I found this track on it was like, I forget if it was it wasn't a website. It was just like one of those talk pages or whatever for RC or whatever, and I was browsing because I wasn't really knowledgeable about any stuff. And all of a sudden I started looking, and all of a sudden I saw this Attitude. I'm like, are you kidding me? Waupun, Wisconsin? I'm like, that's like 17 minutes away. So then I reached out to Aaron. I said, hey man, if we come there, can we bring like some SE late models? Because they didn't race SE late models. They were racing mostly like buggies or truck classes or 4x4 trucks and stuff. So so then Aaron said, yeah, come on up. So then Randy and I came there, and we had that. And by then I've already told my brother. My brother just instantly hooked once he saw the pictures of the cars to himself. So then we kind of showed up at the track, and then we started running that class. And I think by the end of the year we had, I think the first race we already had 6 of us. I forget how many we had by the end of the year, but halfway through the year, I had obviously spent a lot more time on the computer and looking things, and I found in the day, everybody will know this old or whatever will know Bart's Parts. So Bart's Parts was I don't want to say the original because nobody really knows. Somebody always stand up and say, I was the first one to do this before somebody. Well, let's just say Bart's was one of the very early creators of it. Maybe, the original, or maybe you've seen it from somebody else, but so when I saw that, I was like, oh, SC Modified. So then I brought, halfway through the season, I brought an SC Modified and said, Aaron, do you think we can race these too? so then we helped. Attitude's an established place, and it's a real great place. We help bring like two of those classes to the track, and obviously now they got sprint cars and Midwest modifieds and amateurs and amateur mods and so on. I mean, it's just, it's a great place. Ryan's been there, he knows. So, yeah, so that's sort of how I got into racing and how we got involved with Attitude. So yeah, there. So I can ramble on for forever if you guys will let me. So
No, and do it. But okay, so you get into this and you're deep, right? Like you're deep into it. You're running, a mod. You're running the short course late model, which is an awesome division there at Attitude. So when did the Shark RC thing come into this? When did that come into play? Because it's obviously grown really big now.
Little kid, my mom got me into like freshwater fish. Okay, and then as I grew older, I got into like saltwater fish, and then I love the Caribbean and snorkeling and stuff like that. So we had our little group with Randy and my brother and me, and there's Jason. Jason came a little later at Attitude though. He wasn't there right in the beginning when we did.
It's Jason. It's just to clarify. Just 1 second, Paul. Just to clarify, it's Jason Walecki. I've been saying it wrong, and apparently Matt Murphy has been giving me some heat on it about saying his name wrong. So it's Walecki.
So you ask like Kurt Raleigh and stuff, and everybody's gonna like chase him last because Aaron butchered his name in the beginning. So we all hockey or whatever. We just say anything just out of the blue, just because Aaron butchered the name up. So yeah.
Well, and it's Jason too. We can pick on him. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that in there.
Jason's another one that was from the Hanks from Slot Car days. So like my brother, Randy, myself, Jason, and then Mark Morris. If you know Mark, he races at the track. So we're all from Slot Car days. So it's kind of cool that we all kind of reconnected. I've known Randy forever, but so actually, a lot of these friends that I made. We're from the slot car tracks, in the day from Hanks to now. And I'm making friends from the RC track that, some are my friends and some maybe might not like me. I don't know. No, anyway. So we started racing and then we race and we love it. I'll say this from my brother. He probably won't watch this video. So, but Aaron, my brother and I, we love 4x4 light models. So we got to bring them back. Aaron will just say no. So anyway, so we all, getting back to the start here, we all race basically SC late models, SC modifieds, and SC 4x4s, Randy, Wayne, and I. I just started our little group was our little group. So I was like, let's have our own little race team for fun, right? So I figure I just named it. So brings in the aquarium and the saltwater fish thing and everything. It's like, why not Shark Motorsports? So Shark Motorsports was our group. So Shark Motorsports. So a few years later, by the business is called C&M Bodies. I'm like, first of all, C&M Bodies, if you don't know anything about RC, you're like, what the hell is C&M Bodies? It's like, what is it? It's like, is it, toy related or whatever? So I was like, well, the name means nothing, has nothing to do with me or anything. So when I bought the business from Steve, who was, I think, the second-ish, maybe third owner, I think he's really the second owner of C&M. It originally started in Tennessee with, Ottman. I can't remember his first name. Anyway, yeah. So I just kind of started the business all over from scratch. I figured the reputation of C&M from the previous owner was okay, but he didn't promote it well enough, and I just thought, well, at this point, let's give it a better marketing name and willing to sacrifice people taking a little while to learn what the body, what the company is, and instead of just going with C&M Bodies. It's like, so it's like, fine. So I just decided just to reinvent the business, which, when Ottman, I think that's the name. Anyway, when he owned the business, the Atomic is the Atomic SC, and then the BAMF was the Atomic A scale. But I changed the name to the BAMF because I had so many people confused with Atomic and Atomic A scale. They were ordering the wrong bodies. So between that, the Assassin, the Volunteer, and then the original Nightmare were all the bodies that came with the business. So part of me wanted to just reinvent the business because it's hard to say that it's even seen on bodies anymore. There's like all that's left is the Assassin, the BAM F, the Atomic, and the Volunteer. I mean, the Nightmare has been retired because it's a 9.5 inch wide body. They don't really run those anymore. Foam tire would, but they've advanced that body style, enough that it wasn't, there. I love the name because that's why we kept it for when I released my Nightmare. So, but that's why we call it Nightmare 2020. It's like the guys down in Tennessee from the original company were like, so like Atomic is named because of the Atomic Speedway. These are all things that I found out that I learned. Volunteer is it's a volunteer state, but it's the Volunteer Speedway. And then the Nightmare was named because the guys all know of Jimmy Owens, and Jimmy Owens is the Newport Nightmare. So that's where that kind of name comes in play, and I kept it because it's just a good name. So so that would be how the naming and everything happened with the business. So I hope I'm not boring everybody with that.
No, it's good to understand the story behind it, right? Because for me, I'm like, I'm thinking, where the hell did Shark RC come from? Well, it's cool to know that you're in aquariums and all that fishing, the fish and all that stuff, aquatic, type deal. It's cool. We all have our nerdy little hobbies.
Oh yeah, it's like everybody's like Shark because Shark's such a trendy name. Shark vacuum cleaner, Sharks. Whatever the kids stuff, baby shark stuff, whatever. But it's like it actually all stems from like me just being like snorkeling and loving snorkeling in the ocean and sharks, and it has nothing to do with how anything was trendy or anything. So yeah, there's a story behind the story. So yeah,
that's super cool. That's good to know that story behind it.
But it's cool that it has a real backstory to it, right? You didn't just go, I just really love this logo of this shark, right? It actually has meaning. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing it here on the podcast.
So, and that ties it in. My friend Randy. Yeah, Randy was the one who actually being a sign painter, because Randy dates back to actually actually painting with a brush. So, and then obviously moved into like stacked vinyl and stuff like this. Well, he designed my logo. Actually, I used like 3 different logos. So he did it. The only one that he didn't do is the shark that's holding like the radio. That was done by a guy in South Carolina and stuff like that. But yeah, like the main logo, which I don't have my sweatshirt on, so I'm wearing, this is live now, so I can say, Scooter Allison, thanks for the Papa Willie's shirt. Could use another one. Can anybody read Papa Willie's? Just kidding. so I'm sure he'll have fun with that and stuff. So
I'm sure he'll be sending you one in the mail.
I doubt it. He'll probably be like, "Come on, Paul, seriously, why'd you even mention it?" So, yeah, I mean, this is old, so trust me, it didn't just happen overnight. You can see that it's been like washed out. I've had this thing like almost 3 years, so it's been good. So, yeah. So now we're talking podcasts about my sweatshirt, so that's good, right? Good info.
Hey,
what everybody wants to hear about.
Yeah, if that sweatshirt could talk, right? It's got a lot of stories. It knows a lot of stories.
First off, what's unique about your bodies is you got some really cool names for them, right? We talk about the Attack, the new Knockout you just released, right? Like, there's some really cool, the Ninja. Myself, the Crazy Train. I love that one. If, you're an Ozzy Osbourne fan. The names obviously are cool. Right? I mean, like the Outcast, you look at the Hammerhead. I mean, there's so many cool names, but they're just such cool looking cars. They have some real unique designs. And, one of the things, and we've talked about this kind of offline, we won't mention any names or anything, but, some other body manufacturers, they look cool, but sometimes they don't work. I was running another manufacturer's body, unbeknownst to me, coming to Attitude and kind of we'll call it the home of Shark RC bodies. We
got 2 of us in the state of Wisconsin. So
yeah, he is, no doubt. But if you're running a street stock at Attitude, it should almost be given that you're running a Shark body. And so one of the things is I ran another manufacturer's body, and I thought it worked. I thought it looked real cool. I ran a Outlaw, Jason Walicki's Outlaw body, decked, beautiful car. But boy, oh boy, did that change the characteristics of how the car performed. I actually picked up 0.2 of a second by going to that body, not changing anything else on my car, and still my poor driving ability. I picked up 0.2 of a second just by switching bodies. So that told me a couple of things. One, aero makes a heck of a difference on these cars. In you know, the decking, I think, played a big factor in that, you know, taking out the windows. But, you know, when we look at your designs, I mean, heck, you know, just looking at the new smokescreen body for the buggies. We look at the which one is that, Paul? I'm on your website here, and I actually own this body, and I can't remember it. It's the
Is it for
Slash? Which one is it for the Slash Street Stock? The
is
new
it
one
like
with the super nose?
Okay, yeah, the brand new, the Riddler, yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yeah. So
the Riddler just has this beautiful rake in the. So, where do you come up with this stuff, man?
my brain. Just
All up there?
Okay, so you know, starting off with the Joker, which is the first body I ever did. So, Randy and I sat in his garage one night, and we were just trying to draw up an idea. We knew that I wanted to expand the business, and all that C&M Bodies was late model bodies, which was why I bought it, right? Because I love late models. So, so what we did is we kind of tens, and I got sick and tired of blowing transmissions constantly, and dog bones and CVDs just flying off the car eventually. So I just listened to him, and he's like, you know, everybody's got a Slash in their garage, so let's just market this as a Slash street stock. So I was not the originator of like these type of bodies. You know, Perma made them. They made for a basher body. And then some people at very select areas started to run them on dirt oval. So they didn't fit. They were too narrow, and the bumper stuck out in the back and the front. So what we did is we looked at, let's design a car that the bumpers fit under the front and the back, and they're wide enough. They're not going to rub. And then what we thought is, okay, so we're racers. We love racing. So most racers are done in their garage. So you have a roof shape, you have a hood shape, and you have a bumper, front bumper shape. And then the doors are usually sheet metal, sides, flat sides. So a lot of people look at my bodies, and the first generations of bodies are like, why are the sides so flat? They look funny because they got the nose. And it's like, well, if you're into street stock racing, you understand sheet metal sides, flat sides. That's why they're done that way. It's not that like we just lost detail on the sides. So, which we put more into it, like when you talk about like the crazy train. I just put some little decorations on the side, but they're still flat, but just, you know, for the people that want that. So, but the Joker was the first one, followed by the Villain. So, and I just, you know me, I just posted it. I just, with my Joker, I love the Joker body. This is my first one, and I'm racing it. So, the Villain is one body I never raced, even though I own an F-150 and I'm a Ford guy. Sorry for the people that aren't. I haven't raced the Villain yet for some reason or another. A lot of people do. It's a great body. I don't know. The Joker, I've moved around. The third one that we released was a hat trick. A hat trick being the third one. So that's the name behind that one. That's why the Challenger is called the hat trick, because number 3. If you know, so with darts, you know. So everything kind of sort of has a meaning in a way, you know. So I think that then the fourth one I released was the Caddyshack. Now that was mine. So you don't see Cadillacs on street stocks and everything, but I've done a Camaro that everybody wanted. I've done the Ford. I've done the Dodge, and I'm like, so I'm going to do what I want to do. So I did that for myself. I've raced the Caddy. I've raced the hat trick and the Joker. So I don't recall off the top of my head what the fifth one was. So, but I won't go through the whole 43 body list. So when they got released or not. So, but you know, there's one out there that's called the Shaggin' Wagon, and it's about, you know, I've had people like just bash it and stuff. And I'm just like, it's a boat. It really is. It's just huge. But it's like, some people love it, and it's like, it's a real pain in the butt to pull. That's why I was out of stock for a while. So how this all happened is I had a neighbor about 2 blocks down, who I just knew and helped me, and he just actually worked at a packaging company, like for food packaging. So he knew about vacuum forming. So we picked his brain when Randy and I were designing the first bodies. So the first 2 bodies was actually designed by him. Actually our design, but he listened to our numbers that we gave. So, and that's how I got started into those first 2. And then after that, he had to stop. His employer didn't want him tying up their machines with all this stuff. So we had to, I had to just research where I could find some stuff. There's been so much, oval people understand stuff, the drag people don't. Oval people understand the flat sides and everything, and the drag people were like, well, there's no side detail because drag cars should have side detail. And when my buddy Daniel Judd out of California reached out to me to get into lost all the drag bodies that they could use, and Dan looked at my street stock bodies. He said, hey, those look like they could still work because they're in the early days of drag racing. They were drag racing on slashes, so tracks of slashes, so they fit. So we decided, between Dan and I, we decided to release the boss, which is Billy the villain. So we did that one first, and it went over pretty good. So the only problem is, drag racing was full of a lot of people that watched Street Outlaws. If you ever watch Street Outlaws, there's a lot of screaming and yelling and complaining. I don't know if people think that this is the way that the hobby should be, and they carry it over there. So I got just ridiculed. You either love sharks or you hated sharks on the drag racing side because they had the flat doors. I have people saying comments that it looks like a car raced and went between 2 buildings that were too close together and sheared off the sides of the car. Just like, because that's what they see. But that was part of it. They didn't understand that I wasn't fully committed to drag racing, but I was using some of the models that I had that would work. So eventually we started working our way into making more of them. We made the Scarecrow, which was the Crow, which, if you watch drag racing, is a popular car. Proline has since done a new GTO and a better looking one than ours. Ours was just struggle to do, so because it's just the people that I dealt with, that I had to deal with, were limited in making something as good as it could be. So all the original, I call them square bodies, which are on my street stocks, they're done now. Very rarely will you see anybody running one in drag racing because they're so wide, so they don't even work, because drag racing is always evolving. I can talk to you tonight and say, hey man, this is the way to go, and I wake up tomorrow morning, I'll be like, are you kidding me? It's changed. That's why some manufacturers like J Concepts, I don't want to say on their part because they dropped out, because they maybe didn't. I don't want to say that for what they're saying, but the understanding is they just weren't going to support it anymore. From not saying that, I don't want anybody saying that I'm saying it, and then they'll turn around and say they're still in it, but they haven't made any outlaw bodies. So for the outlaw side of it. So,
and I could tell you, Paul, like, my buddy Tom Vassy,
I know
he's
Tom.
big into drag racing, and on the RC side,
Yeah.
good dude, right? And like that, it is incredible. Not only are you like 10,000 to win races, right? But I mean, the technology, Dustin from GFRP is constantly working on his chat. Like, it is just, you're right. It's evolving every day. The bodies, everybody's looking for more aero. They're looking, I don't know what aero they're looking for, if it's rear downforce, front down, whatever it is, so yeah, to your point, it's constant. Like, and I can see where a guy like you, a one-man band, would get, I can see where it'd be a little frustrating because you're, like, I can't move fast enough to support the speed at which that side of the hobby is growing. I get
it's amazing how it changes day by day. So, but that's all part of it. I signed up for this, so I can't complain and say, well, why is this happening like this? Because this.
Well, and it's not like you've sat down
Right.
and done nothing about it.
Like before when we were talking here, we talk about when you said like, Attitude Raceway is like Shark Central, and it's like I just I'm the type of person that I could just sit back and yes, it is and everything. But no, Greg races there, and Greg has products too, and Greg's Emmer Customs is it's his home track too. He's out of I think Cedarburg area, so he's really not that far from me, but it brings it back to like when you were talking about design. So my designs were after that. Then I think we went to do the Zero, which is the Camry, and then the Hitman I think was number 5, and that was the Monte Carlo. And what I did is that one I tried to make it more like a Nesmith sort of street stock, putting a little bit more rake in it a little bit and everything, but I didn't want to go too far because I was supporting the class, and the class is building throughout the whole country in different pockets. Over Super Street. I think it's called Super Street, whatever, on the East Coast. They run like a high center gravity chassis. They run a Just Stock 13.5, and that's all in like North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia area, what they're running out there. And then there's the other. I forget what the West Coast one is. They're almost similar. I don't know if it's like Super Street or if it's something like that. But now those guys run real similar stuff like what we run at Attitude. So, but anyway, so making those bodies and stuff, we did that, and then like I said, then all of a sudden I made the Shake Wagon. That was later in the list, and then I made the 6-pack. So the 6-pack was based off of like a 74 Camaro, like Brewster Baker. So I wanted to start keeping the bodies kind of old school a little bit, right? And I was going to do a 55 Chevy, right? So and then the other manufacturer, I don't want to say anybody's name or whatever, but so I mean, Greg I know well enough, so Greg would be fine if I call out his name and is a positive, but with the other body came out and it was like more of like asphalt late model based. Some people think it's like NASCAR, but it's kind of more like asphalt late model based, and those took off on the West Coast, and I'm like, I can't make a 55 Chevy that's going to run with that. There'd be a select group of people that want to do that because they had a 55 or they love a 55 and they'd do it shelf queen or whatever, but it's just not going to compete. So I had to make something that was going to compete. So I tried my best to make it mine. None of the body lines really match up, so it's completely different. I decided to do the Supra because I wanted to release. I didn't want to be like a copycat or anything. When I did the first one, I wanted to make sure that it was done, and nobody calling me out saying, "Oh, you did this like this." And so I really worked hard to make sure that it was mine. And I always try to do that in all my bodies. I always try to make sure that it's just like, let's try to do it different. I mean, it's like when I went and did the Ned Smith, like the Hitman, I wanted to push it a little farther, but I was worried about that. So then, Greg made some of his bodies in the buggy side that were like more like that style, and I'm like, well, that's what I wanted to do, but it's like I don't want to like just copy it, and so I try to keep stuff looking different, and the outlaw thing, like I don't know if Greg was happy about that or not, or how it was with the body, because it's similar to it, but it's like, how do you make something different, the same almost? It's like when we did our UFO, we tried to do the late model. I tried to make it look like a Lucas Oil car, but Greg does his bodies look so good, his late model bodies look so good that I had to make mine still be competitive and look like a Lucas Oil car, but now look like his, So that's why I tried to do all that, and I think Greg knows that I work really hard at trying to make sure that they're just not clones or anything like that. So the same thing with the Riddler that I tried to do, or the smoke screen is pretty much just like people have been asking me for a long time about the Hammerhead body and the buggy street stocks since it's been around for 4 years, and they're like, it still has like a 2015 nose on it, and some people wanted like the ZL1 nose on the car. So the smoke screen is kind of like the upgraded version of what a Hammerhead. So So I'll still make all the old bodies in case somebody just loves a body and wants to race it. Because look at me, I'm racing the Joker yet. I'm racing the first body I made. So,
Yeah, you're running a Joker. Yeah, it's what, 2 years old, that body you've been running on there?
knock on wood, but it's like it doesn't even have a crack in it. So I've raced it down in Farmer City. I've raced it at Attitude. So it's all about bracing the body. And, obviously, if you're in some of the lower mains,
Yeah.
and, you're going to hit stuff a little bit more too. So being in the, I had people come up to me when I was at PT's. I can't name, Todd. He races down by you. Flagman, help me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Todd Booker.
Todd Booker, yes. Todd Booker at PT's comes up to me with a villain body. He goes, Paul, both my fenders popped. And I'm like, oh. And I said, let me look at it. And I flipped it over, and I put my fist between, like, the front section of the car and the body, and I'm like, that whole area when you hit somebody is flexing in. The fenders are going to bend to a point where they're just going to pop. I mean, it can't support everything, So, I've raced my previous Joker body where Jason Walecki and Randy they were like, man, dude, you run a body business. This thing is looking really rough, and you're still running it. And I'm like, I ran it at like, I don't know, 5, 6 different tracks. And it just looks really rough, but it's like, and they're like, why are you running that? You got, plethora of bodies on your shelf you can run. And it's like, I said, no, this is the best marketing tool I have. I bring it over to somebody, it looks like heck, but none of the fenders are popped. There's no cracks in it. So then I go to a track called the Bait Shop. Do you ever hear stories about the Bait Shop in Beaver Dam? It was only run
I've
for
heard,
1 year.
yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
It's the smallest track possible. They only run 5 slashes in it, and that's still like cramming it in there. And I go to that track, and I pop the fender at that track. It's like 10 miles an hour max on a straightaway, and I pop the fender at that track. So, yeah. So I mean, they can crack at any time, or they can last for a long time. So, Shugu is obviously something that I always suggest people. So,
Well, it's how you brace the car, get that bumper set up, getting it tight. I think the bodies, they certainly can last. I mean, I run your Alien body, which we'll talk a little bit about on my 1RC car. You brace that thing right, and it lasts. There's really zero issues with it, and that's the biggest thing. And you're absolutely right. Shoe glue does help. It provides some, I guess, bounce back and kind of holds everything together.
if you shoe glue it ahead of time, right? If you shoe glue it ahead of time, what you get is the body can still crack, but it doesn't separate, so it still holds its integrity, But the minute you decide to let the body crack first and then you try to shoe glue it after that, it'll never seat up right. There's more of a tear involved, and it just doesn't. So just putting it there for like preventive maintenance is, the hitman. I always even mark up every body that goes out to a customer where to shoe glue it. So because there's undercuts that ended up in that body, and when you pull a body off a mold, when you have undercuts, it stresses the Lexan a little bit. So I'd rather have my customers, have the body last for them and have them come back to me after 2 years and say I'm coming back to buy a shark body, opposed to, hey, I ran this body for 6 months, it cracked, now I'm buying another body. Because after a while, that stuff happens too much. People are just going to be like, I'm going to try something else. So I like to just try to get it to last for them.
So Paul, I got a couple questions for you. So for our listeners, can you just walk them through? I mean, this amazes me how you said it starts in your brain. That doesn't surprise me, because to come up with all those different styles and ideas, But my question is, how does the physical process start? Do you start with like some kind of a casting, and then you go into turning it into a car? Like, how does the manufacturing, without giving out any secrets, but how does that whole thing start, other than just being a CAD design maybe?
I had to reach out and get different designers. So I parted ways with 4 different people because they weren't getting me what I needed. It's not the easiest process to do. There's not a lot of people involved with that type of, being 3D modeling that can do that stuff. Our technology is obviously changing drastically, and 3D printing's coming into it for a lot of people and stuff. And I think on the drag racing side, some of the people are doing 3D printed. I'm doing really old school stuff, so it's old school stuff that works. I guess I race my Joker because it's old and it works for me. So my business is modeled after if it's working, keep using it. So, but I had dealt with a couple people locally, and I just had to part ways because they weren't understanding. It's a very difficult part for a designer to get what's out of my head through conversation on paper, and into a design, because the designer I deal with right now, he's not really a car guy, so now you're taking this. Yeah, he used to be a car guy. He's not anymore, but when he's younger, he used to be. But he's not a racer, so now he doesn't understand some of the racing things that I'm asking for. I'm like, I need this for better aero, please, and especially the drag racing cars. Let's put a little more rake here at this point. I want this more blunt. I want this, and we will do. I believe it is the Black Widow, which is my Corvette body. We had 10 hours of Zoom messages just on my part of the design of explaining not even what he did. So now think about how much time he has into that thing. So people are like, why does it cost so much for molds? Why aren't they cheaper and everything? It's like, if I could design it myself and I had the knowledge myself to work these, processes, then it'd be easier because I'm not on the clock for myself. I just design it on my time, So I don't when I'm designing a body, I don't sit here and log in and be like this. It's just whenever there's free time. So there's not like always a dollar attached to everything that I do. So now with my designer, so it's like, yeah. So every time we do a design and he messes it up, and it frustrates me because it's like, click back on the clock. It's like, but that was your mistake. You didn't understand what I was saying, So and then it's like, there goes the cost. So it's the biggest thing about taking this business and moving it forward was, and this is where the drag racers didn't understand, is I needed to build up like helpers. I had my business platform. I needed to find people that were able to do this and do that, and I had to search to find all these people to help, because it's like you can't do everything yourself. Even though I do a lot, that's why we talk about the many paws of the business. So, but you have to do it. It's like, where can I find my Lexan? Where can I find my Lexan cheaper? Who do I know through a conversation that can line me up stuff? And then Andy Gross, as my friend, obviously Andy at the track, and Andy worked at a company that did some stuff, and he was able to help me with a few things down the road, but then that kind of went south with that place, and I ended up going back to like my original place that I found originally. So but it's very difficult when people like on the side of the body will bash on what you did, because they don't have zero clue on how much effort, how much time, and everything it took to create a body. Like I said, bumping into my neighbor and talking to my neighbor because he works at a food packaging place, so he knew how to work with the molds, was the start of it. 1 year we all heard that Steve was selling the business. Like 2 years later, the business didn't sell, and then we just heard about that, and all of a sudden I just I lost my job. I said that I wasn't going to sit back and have somebody just like dictate my future for me. So I thought, well, I'm just gonna reach out to Steve and see if he's still selling the business. And then I figured it could just be a part-time, and then I'd have to pick up another job, and then that'd be a part-time business for me. So good thing we had like Cobra Insurance. So when that happened, then it's allowed me to build the business, and then it got to the point where I was like, wow, maybe all I need now is a part-time job besides the business. And just about like 2 months before Cobra was going to end, I started getting the notion. I was like, well, maybe we can just do this without anything else. So, and yeah, but it's like things you do business, you got to be you can't be great at anything. You just got to get really good at everything. So you can't be great at anything. You just have to be really good. I mean, you got to be able, line up your tax people, line up all your suppliers, all your designers. Everything you got to do is so far behind this that nobody even that races a body and buys a body is like, oh, cool, it's a cool body. It's just there. It's like it's magic, right? The body just appeared. It's like there's so much that took to get to that point. So, and that's the drag racers didn't understand that until 2 years ago when I started hooking up with my guy out of Portland is Eric. He's my designer I deal with now. Until when I found him and I started creating some stuff, and he understood. He was the one designer who could get this to paper, and he understood things. We still had to go through a lot of turmoil. Sometimes, trust me, these 10 hours on that were not just like, hey buddy, how you doing? Oh yeah, that looks okay. No, there was a few heated exchanges. It's like he's frustrated because it's like he understood me wrong, and he designed something that is totally not that I wanted, and he'd spend 3 hours on it, and all of a sudden I'm like, dude, I can't do that. It's like it's not going to be right, and we gotta, and so we have a pretty good relationship. We understand things a little bit like that, but it's without being too much detail. Obviously, it can be a struggle bus. There's people want different molds. You listen to customers like, hey, I get the emails constantly. Hey man, can you make this? Can you make this? Can you make this? And it's like, I'd love to make everybody for anybody, but ultimately, there's only gonna be some that sell. And then I have some molds that just they're gonna they'll be a black hole. Let's just put it that way. I don't think they'll ever make profit back. They were just something I took a chance at, and it didn't pan out. So mostly on the drag racing side for some.
Let's take an event like RC Chili Bowl, right? Where obviously your bodies have been been very successful there, but they have certain rules, and so when does that come into the equation? When does trying to take a body that you are passionate about, it's a great body, you don't see any reason why it wouldn't be successful, but now I would imagine somewhere in that timeline, you have to start talking with these different large events saying, hey, will this body even be approved? Will it be allowed to race?
I'll call them out because I blame them 100% for it. Adam Radetsky and Phil Jones. They constantly were on me and said, hey man, you got to take your bodies and make a smaller version of them. And I didn't want to do it. I just didn't, because I didn't want to ruffle feathers. I didn't want to. So they tried. It was, I don't know if it was 2 years or if it went into the second season. So they just constantly were like, you got to do it. You got to do it. And finally, it's like they're said, well, man, we need something new. The classes aren't. There's nothing. There's not as much push for new bodies into the class, and they felt that some of the places were dropping off. So I finally said, fine, I'll do it. So I decided to do the Hammerhead first, which is kind of it's a version of the Joker in a way, but it's obviously turns up to be a little bit different, It got some feedback from some people because it's so much wider than the other bodies, but Gary McAllister used to make a lot of these bodies in the past, and they were all based off the buggies in the old days that were a little bit narrower. So everybody knew that the bodies needed to be wider to fit the cars better, just like we did with the Slash. We took our street stocks and we made them fit the Slash better than what Parma was doing. Parma didn't do anything wrong. They did a great job. I mean, they basically gave the ideas for the people to start running it, so, and I fed off that. There wasn't a lot of it, we built up that Slash class in a lot of areas but now it's like a lot of people don't even know if it's if Shark was the one that did it, or if the other body that's out now is the one that's, bringing it towards the West Coast. Did I just say West Coast? Anyway, so West Coast. So when it came to that, then it fit all the rules that it would be, because my bodies have a blunt nose. Okay, so like when you look at that villain body or the Joker body, those noses are very blunt. So there's nothing that's like you're not cheating anything up to get the car to have like a late model nose on it. They're just lives in Wisconsin. He runs a chili bowl, and he used to own Trackside Hobbies, and we talked about a few things and stuff, and he felt that like they're perfectly fine for the rules, but there was no markings on the back bumper, so for a cut line. So because like my Joker doesn't have a bumper, because in slashes we just leave them cut out. So we just had to come to a point where I was down there, and this was later on. So this was actually into the fact that I had the Outcast, the Dog Pound, and the Hammerhead, and then we went down there and we just basically measured off the body, and he's like, what will work, what for the rules? And I told him, well, it's just 2.5 inches down from the deck, and then just make that the cut line for the bumper, and that's all that. So that matches up with all the manufacturers. So there's no advantage to the back of the car, right? So that was one of the things that like Scotty and I just talked through and did. So now like the newer ones, not the smoke screen, because I had a problem with the back end of the car, but like the Crazy Train, they have like a cut line on the back at like 2.5 inches, so that people know where to cut them. So yeah, but. To answer your question, it's like they just wore a street stock body that was more modern looking than like the older ones. I don't think they're really stretched for massive advantages or anything like that. They're just, they were legal in slashes, and I don't think anybody seen it like that. The evolution of any type of body in drag racing, dirt oval, everything is just boundaries get pushed. I'm a business, so I don't like to push certain boundaries, but I have to compete.
So we got to give praise to Phil and Adam for really pushing you on the buggy side of things, because, it is true. You need a little bit wider body. I'm going to Chili Bowl for my first time, and I talked with Jason Van Nuys. He's a winner there at Chili Bowl. And he said, Ryan, you really want a wider body. You don't want your wheels exposed. And so, research led me to your website where you had that wider body that would encompass those wheels. And I think that's really important, and it definitely helps.
I think you hit on the important part a little bit earlier that ties into that passion, is that the common person, and hey, I'm guilty of it. I had no idea how it gets to a body. I'm just looking to see if the body's cool, right? But now that you take the time, put the brakes on, and really explain it to all of us, that's why it's so awesome that you came on the show. It gives you a whole different perspective, right? It gives you a whole different perspective as a consumer buying a body. I mean, I've been up to Attitude, and like I didn't see a Rolls Royce parked anywhere, so. This has got to be a passion. It's not like you're making $1 million off of doing this. It's because you're trying to do it for the hobby. And, people need to take a minute and kind of slow, like I'm going to use a Ryanism, pump the brakes a little bit and take time to think about what really goes into this. Because if we didn't have the Pauls of the world and Shark, could you think of how boring our cars would look? I mean, yeah. It without a doubt, and I'd bet money on this sport would not be as big as it is without guys like you designing bodies that are not only just will weather the test of time, like you said, but are relevant, right? Like the Camaro and the Mustang. I mean, that's what's out there now. It's not, like Ryan said, it's not like it's a 1976 Camaro. It's a Z1, right? It's the current thing. And luckily you can sell these things all over the country, but there's a lot of risk involved for a decent amount of reward.
Hey, here's the thing. Here's the thing that everybody's got to take a look at. And I want to say this, and Paul, we've had our conversations, and the thing of it is a cool looking body doesn't make it fast. Okay. It's the driver, number one. Number two, it's how you get your car set up. When you get past those two things and you've got that somewhat perfected, now you really have to start taking a look at aero. If you jump on Paul's website or you're able to look, I mean, some of the raking on these cars, right? I mean, you're creating downforce with a lot of these designs. And that is super important. Again, I told you I ran a different manufacturer's body. Thanks for calling me out on that too, Paul. I ran a different manufacturer's body. I jumped in to an Outlaw, a decked Outlaw. It, again, 0.2 of a second. And it's not because I'm a better driver because I bolted that body on. No, it was the body doing the work for me. So some places, you know, a decked car isn't going to work. You know, I picked up the new one from you. I bought a deck. I'm going to hold off on putting that in until we try it. We're going to run it at trackside. You know, we're going to do some things with it. And, you know, so it can look cool, but it's got to work from an aero perspective. And that leads me right into, I got to talk 1RC for a minute. So that leads me right into that alien body. That body is wicked. Now, let me tell you about what I do with my alien, folks, if you're listening. So my alien, I'm a 1RC. I do not have it decked. I have all the windows in it yet. It is incredible from a downforce perspective. It does dirt late model things. I'll leave it at that. How you position it, whatnot. And, you know, they take a lick. You know, when I love the folks at 1RC for everything they've done, but those bodies, if you don't have them protected right, you're going to be cracking fenders and stuff like that. Whereas with Paul, you get the right bumper on that car. It's almost virtually impossible to break. You put a digital fabrication bumper on there, and you have nothing to worry about with that car. You know, one of the cool parts about 1RC is the realism, not only with the bodies, but the chassis themselves, right? And so we've got other manufacturers that make a really cool looking stock car body. Our friends at NOB, super cool. You know, Paul chose to take it in a different direction and really make that thing look like a dirt late model. You know, even more so than 1RC did with theirs. And this body, I'm telling you, you just set it on the bench and you look at it and you go, oh, that looks sporty. But what's even better is when you get it on the car and you start to figure out what this thing's doing. And especially if you're running foam, I mean, that thing just, it looks incredible out on the track. But what it does for downforce, if I could just turn consistent laps, I'd be better. But I did haul in fast time with that puppy. And that's, I'm telling you, it's a lot of it has to do with body.
Well, and being a track promoter, you know, I have to put that track promoter hat on and say, yes, it is allowed at the RC Underground. It's just another reason to come race at the Underground.
I want to talk about too, because, you know, it's important that folks listening and watching, they understand something too. So you're making all these bodies, you're doing all this cool stuff, but you're also a racer. And so just for those folks out there, in the last 8 years, you've took part in at least 179 competitions. You've raced 2 classes. You've been to 14 tracks where you competed at least against 524 other racers. You overtook 362 of them at least once. You hit the podium 196 times with 86 wins. So pretty darn impressive stats. I looked that up on RC Garage. This RC Garage, man, that's a great website. Yeah, don't look me up, Paul, because you'll see I got nothing there. But so 86 wins. So we're talking to a real wheelman here, and I think that's important that people understand.
Let's be honest here, though. Let's be honest. The numbers padded a little bit. He said 386. 100 of those were you passing Ryan. So 1/3 of those were you just passing Ryan.
It's been a blessing because he and I haven't been in a qualifier, in a qualifying main for quite a while. So it's good. And you know, I even Sunday in the B main, I actually pulled my car off because I had some issues with it. It was turning right. I didn't want to wreck anybody's race. So yeah, I would say probably 100 of those were passing me. Well, I was just going to say, you know, Paul, I think it's important for our listeners and watchers, viewers to see that, hey, not only does this guy, manufacture these bodies, but he's racing them. You have that in your mindset, right? So you're always looking. You've got 12-ish years of racing behind all this, and that's really what's driving you. And then also listening to your customers. You're at the local tracks. Well, hey, Paul, listen, man, we just want to thank you for taking the time to be on this show and really give us some insight about, what all goes behind developing, promoting a Shark RC body and all the cool ideas that start up here and then having to bring it down on paper and then ultimately into the plastic or the molds that you make. So we just really thank you for kind of really explaining all of that to us. I also want to thank you for being a great racer with me this season and teaching me a little bit. It's been a lot of fun, and also thank you for that Shark Alien body, because it's awesome, and so just really glad you did that. But yeah, just can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with us tonight, and hopefully we can get that Shark RC name out there a little bit more.
On behalf of all the listeners, I know they're going to really enjoy this episode, so we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we're out, everybody. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for joining us.
You've been listening to RC Underground Radio. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, drop us a line at rcuradio@gmail.com. We're curious to know, what do you like? What don't you like? Who would you like us to talk to?
Sounded really weird.
It was weird, but you know what I meant. We're talking about racing, so...
Okay.
You can find us on Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. See you next time on the RC Underground Radio Podcast.
I am a BB in a boxcar.